Okay, welcome back. This is lesson 1 in our Snowman project, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about the environment again. One of the things that we're going to pay attention to is we have our large screen right here. If I want to look at my cube from different specific angles, I can hit number pad 1, number pad 2, oops, make sure I'm clicked in here. Number pad 1 looks straight down the y-axis. Number pad 3 looks right down the x-axis. And number pad 7 looks right down the y-axis from the top. So you can look at your front view, side view, and top view of your object. If I hold down my middle mouse button, I can rotate and look at it from any angle I want. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to set up a couple of things. I'm going to make sure I'm in not Blender render but Cycles render. And there's one thing that we need to do on our computers. To do this, we're going to come in here, and you have to do this every time because these settings in our network are going to be wiped away from the student station. So every time we come in, we're going to start Blender, we go to Cycles Render, and then we're going to go over here to File, and we go to User Preferences, System, and we want to choose CUDA. CUDA is our graphics card, and we have a GeForce GTX 680 on each of our machines, and so now I'm going to go ahead and X out of there. Then I come over to my Properties panel, and the left button has a picture of a camera. That's the rendering button. If you roll over it, it'll tell you what each of these buttons do. So my rendering button, I want to change from CPU to GPU. That's the central processing unit. We want to change to the graphics processing unit, and that will speed things up considerably in Cycles. I'm going to go ahead and delete this lamp, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of planes. The first plane is going to be my base plane. Everything's going to exist, so I'm just going to go ahead and scale this, let's say by 10. Whoops, what happened? I'm going to scale this by 10, and I'm going to lower that down there like this, and so there is my base plane. And bring my cube up. If I select my cube and bring him up, I think I'll bring that just like that. The second plane I'm going to add is going to be in the same place. I'm going to scale this guy, let's say just on the x-axis. So I hit S, X, and I'll go ahead and scale this by 3. And now if I lift this up, I can bring this guy over and up and rotate him, and I'm going to make this guy a lamp. So right now, if I look at my scene in rendered mode, it's very dark, but I've got this guy up here selected, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make him a lamp. So if I come over again to my Properties panel and choose the Materials button, and I'm coming down with the plane selected, I can click on Diffuse, and I have all these different surfaces to choose from. I'm going to choose Emission, and now if I go back to render mode, the plane has actually become a lamp, and I can adjust its strength. Let's say I change this to 3, and it'll get brighter. If I adjust it to 12, it'll get very bright. And so as I come in here, I can see that this is actually creating, calculating light movement within inside my space. If I click on the render, I want to come down here to sampling also. Notice that I've got my sampling to 2500 in the preview. That means it's recalculating where the light is 2500 times, and you can see that happening up here. If I were to change this to CPU compute, I'm going to notice that it's also calculating light, but it's doing it much more slowly. And so the GPU is going to make this faster for us when we're in Cycles. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of a couple of these things. So I select my block here, my cube. Actually, I'm going to delete that because for the snowman I want to go ahead and add a sphere. So again, Shift S, I'm going to move my cursor to center, and then I'm going to add a mesh, which is going to be a sphere, and now that is the bottom of my snowman. I'll go ahead and set this guy up again with my wrench. I go to my modifiers, I'm going to add a modifier, and I'm going to add a subdivision surface, and I can bump the views up to 2. And now I'm going to give it a color. I go to my materials property, go to new, and I can give this guy some slightly different color if I want to. Maybe I want to make him somewhat glossy, or I put glass by mistake. Let's make him glossy and bump this guy up. If I want to see what he looks like, I can come into my rendered mode and it'll give me an exact picture. So that's what he looks like right now. I also want to go ahead and change my bottom here. I'll go ahead and give the color to my bottom plane something like green, And if I want to change the background environment, I can choose. Remember, I have materials, looks like Mars. My environment, or my world view, looks like the world. And so I'll make this guy maybe lighter blue. And so now I can make my snowman. Snowman can be any color you want it to be, but now he's ready to go. And you can see that as I make changes, it begins to recalculate the light, and you can see these are little tiny dots. If I zoom way in, it's just going to recalculate this up to, in this case, 2,500 times. You might want to reduce that to something less than 2,500. Again, to do that, you click on the rendering, go to sampling, and let's say I want to drop this down to 500, so it won't be doing that forever and ever. In any case, at this point, I'm going to add some more elements to my snowman. So I'm going to go back to solid view, and so it'll be easier to work with these different shapes. And I will start off by taking this guy and saying Shift D, and I'll hit Z so it'll go straight up, and then I'll just scale him in. So if I grab this blue arrow, this is called my Gizmo, by the way. We learned 3 letters that are going to help us move things around or change these objects. We had G for grab, S for scale, and R for rotate. And we can do the same 3 activities down here with these little handlebars. This guy's called a Gizmo, and if I select him, if I select this first one, this is for grab, I can grab him from these handles and move him just on the appropriate axis. I have 3 axes, so I can move him just on the Y, or I can move him just on the Z, and so forth. The same thing is true for rotation. I can rotate him. Actually, if you rotate the sphere, not much is going on there. And I can also scale him on any one of those axes. Okay? So that's going to be helpful and useful for us from time to time. Right now I'm going to turn the Gizmo off. I'll say Shift D, hit Z again, and it'll come straight up, and now I will scale him down. So I have got my snowman. Notice that these 3 things are not connected. If I were to take this guy and simply grab him on the X-axis and move him aside, he would move away from the others. But I can select the top guy, shift select the second guy, shift select the third guy. Notice that these guys have a darker orange outring. The lighter orange tells me that's my last guy selected. I'm going to hit Control P, and I'm going to say Set Parent to Object, keeping offset. And now, if I were to move any one of these objects, let's say I move this guy and I grab him on the X-axis, he'll all move together. Okay, so the next thing we want to make is let's make a hat. So there's a number of ways we can make a hat. I'm going to make my hat by adding a new mesh, and the mesh I'm going to add is a cylinder. And so I'll just go ahead and grab that guy, and I'll move him on the Z-axis, and I'm going to scale him also on the Z-axis, and that's going to be the brim of my hat. I'm going to make this guy first before I add the coloring, so it'll all be the same color, but I can go ahead and say Shift D, and I'll move him up on the, undo that, Shift D and move him on the Z-axis, and now I can scale him down a bit, and again I'm going to scale him just on the Z-axis. Might have to do this a couple times. Again, move your mouse close to the center, and then hit Z and move it away. And so I've got something that begins to look like a hat. G and then Z moves it up, and I can combine this as a single object if I want to. So I'm going to say Control J, very important keyboard. Now that is all one object, and I can add a subdivision surface to that guy and make him a little bit smoother. Now that looks pretty weird. The reason it did that is I didn't have very much topology in this guy, so I'm going to undo that guy for a moment, and I'm going to, well, you know, I guess I'm not going to. I told you we're going to do this entire project inside of object mode, so if we don't go into edit mode, we'll just have to leave this hat like that. I can scale him down, and I'm going to go ahead and grab and move Z down like that, and so that is my snowman hat. Let's go ahead and give the snowman hat some color. If I come back to my materials tab and click new material and go to diffuse, maybe I want to make it a velvety sort of hat. I'll click on the color and I'm going to make it dark blue, and let's see what he looks like now. I turn on smooth shading, and let's take a look at this hat now with there, I got a hat. Okay, so I've got what looks like a kind of a metallic snowman, and I've got a weird looking hat, and that looks pretty good. Okay, So that's my start of the snowman. I want to put eyes, nose, mouth, arms, and a scarf. I'm also going to build a tree for this project. So right now we'll talk about how to add the eyes. First of all, I'm going to go back into solid mode and notice that my 3D cursor has moved away. Again, I hit Shift S, cursor to center, and I'm going to add my eye, which could be anything. Let's go ahead and add a sphere. And I'll make this a small sphere, so I'm going to say scale, I'm going to move him way down, I'm going to grab him on the Z axis and move him up, and now scale him way down again, I'm going to grab him on the Y axis and move him out, and that could be an eye. Why is he way over there? Grab him on the X axis and move him. Wow, undo that, sorry. Oh, I moved him on the wrong axis. I'm not paying attention to where my red and green axes are, so I'm going to go ahead and say grab on the Y or green axis and move him right into the face. I'll scale him down. I can use the Gizmo at this point, might be really helpful just to choose this guy and just tweak him and adjust him where I want him to be, and that's good. Now I'm going to add color to that guy before I duplicate him because I want my mouth and all of these pieces to be the same. So I'll go ahead and make him kind of black. If I wanted to make him shiny, I could do that. So I could make him sort of glossy, and I'll add some roughness so it's not too shiny. Let's see what he looks like in rendered mode, and I can see I've got a great big eye there. Okay, now that I've got my eye, let's move him down. So now that I've got my eye, I will go ahead and make a duplicate. Shift D and hit X and just move him over. So now he's got an eye. Shift D, hit X, move him there, and I can scale this guy way down, bring him down, and then over, and I have the beginning of a mouth. So now I just hit Shift D, X, move him over, bring him out a little bit. Shift D, X, move him over, Shift D, X, and so forth. And I keep doing this until I have all the pieces of my mouth, and then I can adjust him if I want him to be smiling, or if I want him to be, this will be a sad snowman, and go ahead and make him look a little sad. You can make your snowman happy or sad, any way you like, and there he is. Kind of even these guys out a bit. So now he's missing a nose. I'm actually going to select both of these guys, and I'm going to go to Add Modifier, Subdivision Surface, bump that guy up, and same thing over here, Add Modifier, bump that guy up. And so now he's missing a nose, and I'm going to add in a nose. Let's take one quick look in rendered view, and I can see, oh, poor snowman is unhappy. Okay, good. Let's go ahead now and make a carrot nose. So to make a carrot nose, I'm going to add a cone right there. Got added right to the center. I'm going to rotate. I hit R, and I'm going to hit 90 on the X-axis, and I hit, oops, I should hit rotate, actually 180. Should have hit -90 on the X-axis. And there he is. So the cone is pointing in the right direction. I'm going to scale him on the Y-axis only. I'm going to shrink the whole thing down. I'll raise him up, and I will scale him down significantly. Let's go ahead and scale the whole guy down. And now I'll just move him back in place. And because I added him to the center, looks like that's pretty close. I can move my eyes around a little bit. Now I need to add this guy. This guy's got to have a different color nose, so let's go ahead and say materials. I'm going to make this diffuse is fine. I'm going to give this a bright orange kind of color and bump that way up. Let's go ahead and take a look in rendered mode. And if it doesn't look like it's quite dark orange enough, I can make this more orangey like that. That might look a little bit better. And so now my snowman has got a nose, a couple of eyes, a hat, and I'm well into the way to making this. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here. Next time we'll put on a scarf, we'll put on some arms, and we'll talk about how to make a tree. That's it for today. Bye-bye.